Today, we sit down with her to talk about her vision for public safety and her personal history that shaped it. So I guess the hard question first, why do you want to be their next city attorney?
Because I believe we should deserve to live in a city where we can all feel safe and where we all thrive. And what we've heard from the thousands and thousands of voters we've spoken to on this campaign trail, that's not currently happening. We need experienced leaders that have, the heart and the grit and the actual background in public safety to really bring solutions to the things we're seeing in our city.
What makes you the right fit for the job?
I think my experience is the biggest thing that makes me the right fit. I look at my experience being a city prosecutor in the city attorney's office, being a defense lawyer for the city of Seattle, being a pro tem judge, seeing what justice looks like from a different perspective on the bench in the same types of courts that the city prosecutors go into. And most recently, my experience being an assistant United States attorney, a very difficult job to get, one that I was really honored, and it was a dream job, to be a federal prosecutor. I was responsible for violent crimes in our district, which includes the city of Seattle, and I was also one of the 2 civil rights prosecutors that represented the Western District of Washington. All those things coupled give me the experience that's necessary because I've worked in public safety my entire career. And that's what's needed in this role, folks that have been boots on the ground working in public safety.
One of the things that got my attention is you don't like the soda and soap zones. Can you walk us through your thinking there?
Yes. So soap and soda is something that we did over about a decade ago when I was working as a city prosecutor. And what I learned in that experience is that soap and soda does not stop behaviors. It just really moves it around to different parts of the city. And as a city attorney, we're responsible for the whole city, not certain particular areas. What we also learned with data that we got back is that it was being disproportionately applied to people of color and people that are in need of services. And to be clear, as the city attorney, it's up to city council, laws that they make. And it's also up to judges. So I can say, we're going to use our prosecutorial discretion to know that these are harmful policies and not criminally charge someone for being in a banishment zone. But they are still things that the judge, with their discretion, they could impose on someone. But these were laws that were repealed in 2020 because that data shows that they were being disproportionately applied to people of color, that they weren't stopping behavior, and that they were just moving it to the behavior to different neighborhoods in the city. And what I've learned on this campaign trail, speaking with voters, even here in Eastlake, folks are concerned when people are just getting moved around. I've walked the streets on 12th and Jackson and seen the suffering, seeing how the soap and soda, it's not working.
If that's not working, what will?
Yeah. What I've learned, being responsible for going after the traffickers that are pumping in, hundreds of thousands of fentanyl pills into our streets, people that are trafficking humans against their will. That is where the focus should be, being good partners to make sure that we're getting the traffickers that are doing these harmful things in our city off the streets. And that is a role that the city attorney can absolutely play, and being a good partner with the King County prosecutors and the assistant United States attorneys, work I used to personally do to make sure we're actually addressing the supply of, these drugs coming in. Another thing, we were talking earlier, you look at what's happening in Aurora. I've spoken with neighbors there that they are not happy with what's happening currently right now. And you can see with the results from the primary that we won those areas. We won those Aurora corridors because voters are smart and they see what's happening. The evidence is in our streets right now. And folks know that what's currently being championed under the current city attorney leadership is just talking points, but it's not actually delivering the real results that we deserve in our city.
When we talk about crime rates, I think we're all relieved to see that violent crime is down from what was just a massive high. But property crimes remain annoyingly high. And these are crimes that they're not victimless crimes, people getting robbed. It's a real violation. You are thinking of reimagining how the city attorney's office prosecutes those sorts of crimes. What goes into that thought process? How would it be different?
Yeah, I think there absolutely needs to be accountability. I agree that property crimes are not a victimless crime. One thing that, I've been hearing from voters is the delay when something happens to their property to get, compensation. One thing that we want to bring is a victims compensation fund. So victims of property crimes are able to get the money, immediately and not have to wait for sometimes a slow system. You talked about violent crimes being down, and that is good. That's work I've done as a federal prosecutor in the violent crimes unit, actually going after folks that are committing violent crimes in our city. To be clear, the city attorney doesn't really deal with a lot of violent crimes. And when we looked at the data that was recently released from the FBI, Seattle is fourth in the country in overall crime, and that's not something to be proud of. We can do so much better. And I think it really comes with having leaders that have been boots on the ground, working in public safety. And that's the experience that I bring that really, I think, sets me apart from my opponent. I've been someone that's been working in the trenches on public safety. My opponent has been someone that's just been consistently running for office. She ran for city council, ran as a Republican for lieutenant governor, and then ran for this office. And so I think the voters our voters here in Seattle are smart, and they know what's up when it comes to someone with actual experience and someone that's actually put their heart into making our streets safer.
But does that mean no jail time? Or what does that mean in terms of prosecuting people? I should say. Yeah. I think the concern would be taking a different approach. Would be we're not going to jail as many people who are committing property crime or violent crime. Maybe you can address that. Yeah,
I think everything is a case by case, analysis. I've done 20 jury trials. I have put people in federal prison. That's something that, comes with the nature of having experience as a prosecutor. So yes, accountability, sometimes look like someone getting a sentence, which includes jail time. I think another thing is important that we've looked at, and it was recently released by the Seattle Times and the Department of Public Defense when we're talking about folks dealing with being charged with drug crimes, being charged with using fentanyl in public or having user quantities and getting charged with drug possession. We looked at that data, and it said out of the 215 folks under the current leadership that were charged, only 6 people were connected with treatment, which means that 97% of the people that have been currently prosecuted for drug use that are people that are addicts, 97% of them are not getting treatment. And that's failure. That is criminalizing people for having an addiction and being a bad steward of our public dollars when we're saying folks dealing with addiction should just be prosecuted and then put back out on the streets without any treatment and services. That doesn't work. And it's clear with the numbers that came out with that is something that has been a failure under the current leadership.
Talking with Erika Evans, who wants to be Seattle's next city attorney. Have you endorsed a candidate for mayor?
No, so the city attorney is the lawyer for the mayor. And one of our ethical responsibilities as lawyers is to, serve future clients with the uttermost professionalism and integrity. And I'm excited to serve who our voters are going to elect as the next mayor.
Okay, so you happy to work with either one of them?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Here's one of those quality of life issues, and I know I sound like an old man complaining, but the graffiti situation across the city, something I think of is every morning I drive in through the Mercer Street Tunnel, and twice now, SDOT has really done a great job scrubbing that tunnel clean. And here we are 6 weeks later, and it is filled with graffiti again. I know this is not going to be the top priority of a city attorney, but how do you address that? It's a quality of life thing.
Yeah, I think back to basics. Like when I was a kid, like if I made a mess, you need to clean it up. Having, folks being held accountable, saying maybe those folks need to be the ones cleaning it up. I think that's important when it comes to accountability. The other thing I'm mindful of is, what are we hearing from community? Like, what are issues people are, worried about right now. And the biggest thing we've heard with speaking with, over 10,000 voters in this campaign is public safety. People don't feel safe in our streets. It's folks feeling that they are worried about their basic rights being under attack from what's happening at a federal level and not feeling like they have a current leader in the city attorney's office that acts with urgency. And that's the lens I'm bringing, of actually listening to what is community saying, what are things that are, people's, hopes and dreams and things that people are concerned about day to day, and being a good steward on public safety and being a good steward of our public dollars to actually bring evidence-based solutions to some of the problems we're seeing. But it's not going to be ever just one person. It takes a team. It takes partnerships. And that's why we're really honored to have so many people standing behind us. We have over 52 elected, current and former elected officials that are standing with this campaign. I think of folks like our wonderful Attorney General Nick Brown, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, people that are leading the charge to protect our rights here in our city are solely behind this campaign. And I think it comes down to folks seeing and trusting the experience I bring and the leadership that they've seen me being in community. It's something that I think is also important in our leaders to be actually present in community so we can be hearing from folks of what are people's main concerns and how we can be best stewards of that.
We're almost out of time. Charlie, are we ready yet for things you may not know about Erika Evans?
I want to know about your grandpa. This is a fascinating story, and it's an iconic story. Who's your grandpa?
My grandfather is Lee Evans. He's a 2-time gold medalist. He was one of the Black athletes in the 1968 Olympic Games, and he used his platform to raise his fist and wear the Black beret to protest against the injustices that were happening in our country. And it's that same courage that runs through my DNA of always standing up and fighting back and always being a public service to the people in our community.
That's just an iconic photo, and it's so nice to hear of your connection to that. Well, Erika, that's all the time we have for you today. Best of luck to you, and we will be speaking with you down the line.
I can't wait for that. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.